Hello, hello. We are live. Finally, we had a bit of technical difficulties, but we are here. And if you can hear me, because my guest couldn't hear me before, if you can hear me, please type in the chat where you're joining from, that you can hear me, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. So if you can hear me, type in the chat. I am Patricia Brooks, and I am so excited to be here today. I'm so excited to have Lynn as my guest. We're going to get into some really interesting things. And I want to share a little bit about who I am, what I do, and why I do it. My name is Patricia Brooks, and I help people who are ready to start the next chapters of their lives living and thriving in a foreign country. And I do that not necessarily by the logistical piece, like helping with visas or finding a place to live, which are really important. I help with the mindset piece as well as with the project piece. I don't know where to start. I don't know when I should be doing these things, and I help put that in place. And my background as a project manager helps me to do that. And on my YouTube channel, I share information about my life here in France and how to make a move abroad confidently and sustainably. And from time to time, I have these live streams where I have guests who join me. And today, Lynn is joining me from Athens, Greece. And Lynn's story is very interesting. It's very inspiring. And I'd like for Lynn to share a little bit about herself. Introduce yourself, Lynn.
Sure. My name is Lynn. I am from the San Francisco Bay Area, but 13 years ago, I moved from San Francisco to Athens, Greece. And I've been here ever since. My training is actually in finance, so I'm a certified public accountant. And most of my career was in the finance sector. But when I moved to Greece, I continued doing finance for a few years, and then I stopped that completely and sort of redesigned my life. So now I teach Kundalini yoga and a system of personality called the Enneagram, and that's kind of what I do full time. So I did a big kind of life reset, although the move was 13 years ago and the professional piece took a few years after that. So, yeah.
Yeah, so well, welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. We met a month and a half or so ago, and I was just really excited by your story. We have some people who have joined us and um, who can hear us. Obviously, we've got Selena from Houston. I'll look at that you, pup. We've got Ryder Skater from Orlando. And we've got Brent Brody who says he can hear us. So that is good news from California. All
Hey,
right.
Brent.
And Dion from Las Vegas. Happy Monday. So glad that you're here. All right. So today it's going to be kind of casual. I'm going to be, we're just going to have a nice conversation about what it's like to move abroad, what is like to move to Greece, what is like to learn a foreign language where the alphabet is completely different, and how to really integrate, because she's got a really interesting story about integration. I mean, she is, I think you said are you a Greek citizen now?
I am on the path to Greek citizenship. So I am not a citizen yet, but I just sat for and passed the Greek citizenship exam. And now I'm in the administrative piece of that process.
All right. Yay. How does that feel?
It actually was very funny that you asked. I was surprised how good it felt, and how it almost felt transformative just sitting for the exam. I remember leaving it and feeling like I had closed a chapter of my life and I had opened a new chapter. And it was a big surprise to me to feel that way, because in my mind, when I sat for it, it was just another exam. It was just another kind of, administrative thing I had to do, but it ended up energetically feeling very, very different, and very energizing. So, yeah.
And so then how long will the administrative piece take?
When you're in Greece, you don't ask those questions. So the reason people don't move to Greece is because of the bureaucracy, which is inconsistent, unpredictable, ever shifting. So we don't know the answer to that, probably at least another 12 months. But the way it works here is the rules can change. They can change retroactively. So even though I have all the pieces now, something could shift and that can be different. So you learn a lot of patience being here.
Yeah.
So yeah. We'll see.
So that leads me to the question, why did you decide that you're going to leave California and move to Athens? How long ago was that?
That was 13 years ago. And, a lot of people ask that question. It's a very normal question, but I always say it's the story with no punchline because I had no reason to move. I'm not Greek by heritage. There was no Greek man. There was no job. It was none of the regular reasons. And I wasn't even unhappy in my life in San Francisco. I grew up in the Bay Area. I was living in San Francisco for 15 years before I moved. Things were going fine, but there must have been something in me that wanted a change because almost as if from outer space, the thoughts that I should come to Athens started coming into my head very, very clearly. And it wasn't that I should move to Greece. It was more just that I should come to Athens. So I'm a CPA. I'm not a particularly impulsive person. I'm very kind of methodical. So I booked a 1-month trip and I called it, my study abroad program that I crafted for myself. So I told my clients I would still support them, but I would be in Greece for a month. And I got a little apartment in Athens and I enrolled in a language school and I didn't have any Greek in my background at that time. So it was kind of the beginner's class. And that was how it started. I came, I loved it. I had this amazing adventure. I went back to San Francisco. I thought about it for a few months. I decided to come back. So I came back for 2 months. The second time, had a totally different experience, not nearly as fun, but more like what real life would be. And then I went back, started looking at, could I get a visa? Could I come with my pets? Because I moved with a dog and 2 cats and kind of started problem solving all the pieces. And then in February of 2012, I moved. So that's what happened.
Wow. So it was really, and I think it's interesting. You say you're a CPA, so you're not a particularly impulsive person. I can relate. I absolutely can relate because France was not on my radar before 2015, right? It was just like out of the blue. It's like, oh, the French language, that's really appealing to me. I think I want to get fluent and maybe I could live in a French speaking country. And it was really like this intuitive hit that's like, get there. And I did and haven't looked back and it's been amazing. So I think that there is something to intuition. If something is telling you to do something or not do something, listen.
And I just want to talk about that for a minute because people sometimes say to me, oh, you're so brave to have moved. And I really challenge that because it didn't feel brave to me because it was so clear. And I remember getting on the plane, the one-way ticket to leave San Francisco to come to Athens. I had my 2 crates of pets, in cargo and my bag of clothes. And getting on the plane, and it was one of the calmest moments of my life, truly, because I was so clear that this was the right thing. And I think that that's the piece with intuition is you can get this clarity and the logical part of your brain might not be able to support it. Like it didn't make any sense what I was doing, but I was so clear that it actually was a very calm experience. I didn't feel a lot of anxiety. So just to say that about like how nice intuition can feel actually when you do get that clarity.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I had a similar experience, except, like getting on the plane, like it was like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do. Touching down in Paris, like that all felt great. When I had my panic attack was 2 weeks later, when I thought, oh, Patricia, you quit a job, you're living off of savings, you don't know anybody. And I could hear my mom's voice saying a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. You don't get a job unless you have one at the ready. And that was when I started to have that it wasn't doubt that I was supposed to be here, but doubt in what I had done. Like, yeah, you just don't quit a job, right? So we took 2 scouting trips. The first one was just kind of to go because you'd heard the voice or felt whatever, get to Greece, get to Athens. And then you went for the 2 months, and that felt more like what real life was going to be like. So between then and the time that you moved, how long was it?
I came back in November and I moved in February. So
Oh, wow.
not that long, actually. But interestingly, a year before, the Christmas before, so I had not yet come on my first scouting trip. I remember having friends over for dinner, and a friend of mine asked me, would you ever move to Greece? Because I was starting to talk about, I thought I was going to go for maybe a month. And I remember turning to them and saying, no way, like I'm completely not interested in moving to Greece. And, a year later, I'm putting together my package to get my resident permit and all of that. So just to say how funny that things can change kind of quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you got to Greece. And so what was it like when you first got there?
Yeah, so at the very beginning, I was still doing my finance work, and for California to Greece, it's a 10-hour time difference. So what ended up happening was suddenly I could sleep in every day because there was no reason to wake up because my clients were, those were not working hours. So my whole, use of an alarm clock or having that kind of a schedule ended. I would start work at 7 p.m. and I would work until midnight, which suited me really well because I'm kind of night focused. And here in Greece, if you want to go out at midnight, that's no problem at all. So that was kind of the first shift, was just watching my hours change. And that just freed up my days so I could kind of explore Athens. What happened was, very interesting because I came with my dog and 2 cats, and there was a whole kind of analysis of should I bring the pets or how's that going to work? And I finally kind of determined it would be better for my animals if we all stayed together. After I arrived, I quickly understood that may have been true, but it was actually much better for me that they were there because a lot of my early neighborhood interactions were walking the dog. So I would be walking the dog and people would stop and pet the dog and ask me who I was. And then we would start a conversation and we'd have a coffee. I became very good friends with the family that has the souvenir store next door to me. And that happened because I needed someone to take care of the dog during one of my trips when I was going back to San Francisco. So that family relationship ended up being transformative. And I have often wondered if I hadn't come with my dog, would any of that even happen? I don't know. So, yeah.
Well, so now you're having these interactions with people. Are the interactions in English or are they in Greek?
Oh, I can't even tell you. They had to be. Like I literally had no Greek or maybe like a handful of words. So no, everything was in English. And in Athens, people speak English. And even if, I would start trying in Greek, as soon as they realized how much I was struggling, we would switch to English. What I eventually did is I got a language partner. So there's a platform called mylanguageexchange.com where you can sign up for free and you can match with people who are trying to learn your language. So I found a local Greek woman who was also an animal lover, who was a raw food chef. And she and I agreed to meet 3 times a week, and we would walk around Athens talking. And it was really, like a public service on her part at the beginning because her English was much better than my Greek. But slowly, I won't say I caught up, but I got better. And so she helped me a lot get to the point where I could hold a conversation a little bit longer, but it took many years before I would say I was even close to conversational. I think they say Greek is hard, and I think the truth is I'm just not good at learning foreign languages, so that kind of compounded the situation. So
well, and okay, and it's when I went to Athens just before the pandemic. Like I went January 1st, 2020, and the thing that I wasn't expecting was to kind of be so disoriented by the signs. It's gobbledygook. It's not like if you go to Spain or to France or wherever, the letters are at least the same. You might not understand the meaning, but so for me, what you have done, can you read Greek?
I can read Greek, yeah. And actually, you're getting the the Englishified version, because before the Olympics, it was all Greek. Like there was nothing. Now, a lot of times it can be a mix. Like they'll have the Greek, alphabet, and then below they'll have it in English, or the English alphabet. For a while, it was none of that. It was just pure Greek, and if you didn't know the Greek, you were completely out of luck. I can read Greek, and again, it's interesting. For me, that wasn't the hardest part. The alphabet, you just learn it and then you start reading it. What's been hard for me is the tonal piece. Like English is not a tonal language and Greek is. And if you put the tone in the wrong place, no one understands you. So for probably the first 3 years, I was just struggling with that because I would mistone things and no one knew what I was saying.
Well, with the tones, if you put the emphasis on the wrong syllable, will it change? Sometimes will it make sense, but it's something that's completely different?
Yeah, like you can halya or halya. One is horrible, one is carpet. What did I just say? So, and there's a lot like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so, for me, I think one of the things that makes living in France so rewarding to me are the connections that I'm making with locals, right? I have my English speaking friends and they're wonderful. But when I can communicate and connect in a foreign language, it still feels it's affirming. And I get the sense that it is for you too.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm very motivated by fun. So like my whole point is like enjoy life as much as possible. And I quickly learned I was going to enjoy my life more the more I could speak Greek, because you're more on the inside. And so that was really motivating. I didn't want to be the one who like I walked in the room and everyone had to switch to English. And as I started to make Greek friends, I noticed, some of them are very comfortable in English, but some aren't, depending on what their jobs are and how much they're kind of involved in tourism and that type of thing. So yeah, it definitely has helped the fun factor, I would say. And also just the integration. Again, like I'm more part of the neighborhood because I understand what's happening around me. So
yeah. What would you say was the hardest part for you in making the move?
I think the hardest part was, leaving my friendships. Because I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, I have lots of friends that, have known since childhood, 11 years old, 15 years old. And while I'm friendly and social and I knew I'd make friends in Athens, there's nothing quite like having that long history with somebody. So that actually was something that I missed at the beginning. My friends have come to visit me. Now I've been here so long. I do have, 13-year friendships. So that now is starting to equalize a little bit. But at the beginning, that was a big hole. It was, it's fun to redesign your life. It's fun to reestablish yourself, but like you're starting from zero, like nobody knows who you are, what you're like, and you kind of have to build that. And that didn't bother me, but I did miss having those people who just understood who I was already. So
yeah. Well, so you talked about, navigating the transition and also knowing that you enjoy fun, that was important to you. And so that was a motivator for you to say, okay, if I'm on the inside, I'm going to have a lot more fun. You, as a part of the work that you do Kundalini yoga as well as Enneagram. Now, can you explain what the Enneagram is? And then once you do, can you share if that fun factor piece is a part of your Enneagram type?
Which part? Yeah, thank you for a great question. So I teach a system of personality called the Enneagram. It is a system that helps explain why people behave the way they do. And the basic premise of the Enneagram is your experience in life is dictated largely by where your attention goes. And while we all continue to be completely unique individuals, our attention is going to one of 9 main places. So I talk about it's almost like learning the country of personality that you are from. I am what's called the type 7, which is the enthusiast. So my habit of attention goes to the positive. So it's really easy for me to imagine what can go right. And I literally have a blind spot for what can go wrong. So how that probably helped, well, not probably, definitely helped me make this move is it was really easy for me to imagine all the things that would be amazing about moving to Greece. And I did not spend a lot of time considering what could go wrong. Like that just doesn't come into my mind as much. It also is part of why I'm so motivated to have fun. Like my belief is like, I'm having fun now, but I could have even more fun. I'm happy now, but I could be even more happy. And so my mind is constantly scouting for like, what else could I do to be even happier? And I think that this sounds like, oh, what a fun personality. I mean, it can be, but I also talk about, I've dated pathological boyfriends, liar boyfriends. I've dated sociopaths. I have a blind spot where I don't always see the red flags. So this can be the negative side of that, fun-loving, positive personality, just to kind of keep it in balance.
Yeah. Everybody wants to go party with Lynn in Athens.
We'll have a great time.
But so then how, when we make a big change in life, like making a move abroad or any big change, it's challenging. How can, what's the benefit of knowing what your Enneagram type is, and how can you, I don't want to say change it, but like you say, you have this blind spot. How can you make sure or make it less likely that you're going to not see that thing that now that you have a blind spot for?
Yeah, so the whole thing with self-awareness is just by shining the light of awareness on the situation, you automatically change it, right? So just the act of learning your Enneagram type already starts to shift. And the goal in the Enneagram, it's not to change types, because your power, your gold, your gifts are all in your type, but it's to relax your habit of attention so you can come more into balance. So maybe an example I would use, I'm a type 7. There's the type before me is called type 6. And this is someone who's got the opposite habit of attention. It's really easy for them to imagine what could go wrong, what could be dangerous. If there's a 6 who wants to move abroad, that's going to be a big ask, right? Because they're going to start thinking of all the things that might not work out. But as you know the Enneagram, you start to understand, okay, but that's actually my pattern of thinking. I look too hard in this direction. I need to work hard to also be a little bit more balanced. So, maybe I have my list of what could go wrong, but maybe I have to work a little bit harder to create the list of what could go right, or the list of what's going to happen if I don't make a change. So you start to kind of work with your own thinking, understanding that you've got a thinking pattern that's not wrong, but it's not in balance. And so you can work to kind of bring it in balance. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes. Yes, it did. Absolutely. And so, but I think also potentially that the idea that you like to have fun could have helped you in terms of being in a place that you didn't know anybody, because
totally. Yeah. Like what could go wrong? Nothing can go wrong, and then you radiate that, right? And so then people are like, oh, she's very open. If you invited me to something, I would go. And so I think that definitely did help. I'll also mention though, because I teach 2 systems and I teach them together because I think they're important. I also teach Kundalini yoga, which is called the yoga of awareness. And it's got a big emphasis on the breath. If I were to really kind of focus on what made this move possible for me 13 years ago, I think it was my Kundalini yoga practice coupled with my knowledge of the Enneagram, because while I understood my thought pattern pretty well from the Enneagram, the breath work of Kundalini yoga is actually what kind of helped me breathe my way into clarity. So I knew what to do. I think that just knowing my 7ness, it could have been confusing. Like there's so many places to go and so many experiences I could have. And I could imagine I would have just, gotten lost in confusion in all the options. Because I was doing this very regular breathwork practice, that didn't happen. I was able to be very, very clear. And so I think there's also a somatic element to, personal growth that's really important. I don't think that we always like work out our patterns in our mind. I think sometimes they're energetically in our body, and we've got to work with that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then that obviously helped you to hear, sense, feel that intuition, right? That came to you because, as you said, as a CPA, it's like you're fun loving, but right.
Yeah, like I'm super practical at the end of the day. So yeah, and this wasn't such a practical choice, but it all made sense. It all felt like, oh no, this is very clear. This is what I should do. So yeah.
Yeah. So Brent Brody has a question around fun. How does the fun in Athens differ from the fun in San Francisco?
Oh, it's such a great question. I mean, this is almost like the question of, what are the lifestyles and even the value systems of Athens, Greece versus San Francisco, California. And what I used to say, the first year or two when I was here, I was amazed that I would go for coffee with my friends and coffee would go on for 2 or 3 hours. There was never an end time. We never talked about stock options. We never talked about our career paths. It was just a completely different set of conversations. The pace here is slower. It's a more social country. I find it to be a much more emotional country. So here, everyone is sharing how they're feeling, which was confusing to me at the beginning. And they're, you really are not just given permission to share how you feel, you're sort of expected to. So I've had people, I'll say I'm fine, and they'll look in my eyes and say, I can see that you're not, like, what's going on? Like, so well, and culturally that's extremely acceptable here. So there's a way where everyone's kind of sharing. So that it's a poor country. And so I think there's a shared resources thing. So to give you a very practical example on the fun question, a friend of mine, shortly after I got here, 6 months, invited me to go on this bike ride. And it was a bike ride that started at 10 p.m. and we were going to ride 60 kilometers, like 40 miles or something. And I wasn't even sure if I could ride that long, but I knew that at the midway point, we would stop for food. So I bring 30 euros. So I'll be able to order food. And we get to the halfway mark and everyone pulls out their sandwiches and apples and whatever, because no one's got money. No one is thinking to go to a restaurant and eat. And I felt like such a jerk because I'm I imagine we're going to all sit down and eat somewhere. And so that people are sharing their food with me because the poor girl doesn't have anything except a lot of cash. And then we rode our bikes back and we arrived home at 2 a.m. And I literally had spent no money, So there's just a way where fun is more about being together. It's not about, the fancy anything. It can be, but more likely than not here it's not. But it's this kind of togetherness and this social thing. So that, I guess that would be, in San Francisco, fun would be find the trendiest restaurant, book a place, go have your cocktails before, have a great dinner, that would be what it would feel like to me. So just kind of a difference in the way consumption and even how time is spent probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there other cultural differences that either you found challenging or surprising?
I mean, the bureaucracy here really is a thing. So for example, in the United States, I think since the beginning of time, or for 50 years, April 15th is the tax date. We all know that. You can file an extension. Here, the tax date changes every single year based on Greek Easter, based on people's holiday schedules, based on who knows what. But you never really know what's happening. And I'm an accountant. And when I first got here, I was totally baffled, why my Greek friends were meeting with their accountants constantly. But now that I've been here, I understand because the rules change and they contradict each other, and it's very decentralized and kind of ununiform. And so just keeping up with the bureaucracy is a big challenge. So I think that has been.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
In France, there's the bureaucracy. Things can take a longer time, but I don't know. Sometimes you just don't know how long it's going to take. When I asked you that question, I'm like, oh, why did you ask that? You know the answer to that. or that you have to send the same piece of paper in 3 times because somehow they lost it or what have you. But I have found what that has done for me is that has caused me to be more patient than I have been. And funny story, I had to renew my passport here in France, and so I decided I was going to mail it and do it that way. And and a week goes by, 10 days go by, I don't hear anything. And then I check the site and I call, and forgetting that this is like a US, situation. I'm like, oh, we sent that, 5 days ago. I'm like, I was just waiting patiently just because my idea of how long something should take had changed. And I was like, oh, Patricia, you've overcorrected. So yes. We've got another couple of questions here. Rider Skater, is Greece a difficult country for Americans to gain a retirement visa? What are the financial requirements for annual income? Is Greece a more expensive country to live in comparison to America?
So I'll start with the last question. It's a little bit easier. Greece generally is less expensive than the United States. Of course, it depends where you are in Greece and where you are in the United States. So Athens is the most expensive here. And if you compare that to the least expensive probably area in the United States, maybe they would be comparable. But in general, Greece is usually about half the cost, I think, is what they kind of say in terms of rent and that type of thing. The retirement visa, so it's actually, I think, called a independent financial means visa. This is one I would definitely say talk to a lawyer, just because the rules are constantly changing. So when I got here, it was a requirement of you having the equivalent of 24,000 euros in a bank account, and eventually it would have to be in a Greek bank account. So that was the requirement. Or you could put in 2,000 euros per month. They just quadrupled that. So now I think it's it's even more than quadrupled. Now they want the equivalent of 3,500 euros per month for 3 years. So I think that ends up being 140,000 euros. So it's a very different number. Yeah. And I think that that's happening in response to people are suddenly starting to really come to Greece, and they are trying to make sure it's people that aren't going to overuse the system in terms of kind of the healthcare and things like that. So I think that's where that's coming from, but the number has changed. However, it's constantly changing, and it's inconsistent. So it would depend on who's actually looking at your application. Maybe you have all of that in a 401k sitting in a United States bank account, and maybe that's accepted. Maybe the reviewer wants that in a Greek bank account, and so then you have to figure out how to move it, and then you can move it back. So it's things like that make it frankly hard to be here or hard to kind of navigate. But there certainly are ways, and if you were going to explore that, I would say get an attorney to help you, because the attorneys here they can be inexpensive, and they can really help you navigate all of those questions.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. So you started, when you moved to Greece, you were still working your accounting services, right?
Right.
And then you shifted to doing the Enneagram as your business.
Right.
In Greece. Now, is your business set up in Greece, or is it still? How have you worked that?
It's super complicated. I essentially have both, actually. I have a US company and I have a Greek company, and I kind of work with accountants on both sides to make sure it's all kosher. It's, complex. And again, that's one where if you're thinking of working, I highly recommend get advice, on both sides. So yeah, I'm filing taxes everywhere. Anyway, yeah, it's complex, but also doable. So
yeah. And then Rider Skater had another question for you. Mm-hmm. Did you consider other countries in Europe?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I didn't, and I didn't even consider other places in Greece. And that kind of comes back to for whatever reason, it was very clear that Athens was where I was kind of being pulled to. I was born in Germany, so that would have made more sense. I took Spanish in high school. That would have made more sense. But neither of those felt at all like where I should be. Whereas Athens, which I had no connection to, felt absolutely like that was the right place. So
Yeah. It was like obvious to you, just this very, very clear.
clear.
Um, yeah. So we worked together. You did my Enneagram type, and just to kind of give a little bit of you said you were a 7, that you're the enthusiast. And I am a type 1, which is the reformer slash perfectionist. Can you share a little bit about that and how that works?
That like the dynamic between those two, or what a one
Yeah,
is,
just
or
what one is, what their blind spots are.
Mhm. Yeah. So type one, we used to call it the perfectionist, but now we call it the improver because we found there were too many type ones who didn't really identify with being perfectionists because they would say, it's inefficient to be like a perfectionist. But I talk about these are like the correcting machines of the Enneagram. This is someone whose habit of attention goes to what could be improved. So you as a one, you're constantly noticing this is good, but it could be better. And the blind spot is leaving things as good enough. So one of the things that, like I say, ones are the ones that keep us like improving and moving forward. They're the ones that are constantly making things more efficient, putting in systems, just helping. They can have a really harsh inner critic. And so for ones, a lot of times if they make a mistake, they might be thinking about that days, weeks, and months later. And so like if I were working with a one who said they were going to move abroad, I think we would do a lot of work around, mistakes are part of this. Like that's, what you want. Actually, the goal is to make mistakes because you're here to grow, because it's going to be really easy for a one to beat themselves up about things that, just naturally are going to happen whenever you move abroad. There's just a bunch of stuff you don't know. So,
Yeah. I when we did the typing, it was interesting. You asked a question and it made me think of an experience I had back in high school with my high school boyfriend. And I don't know, it was a conversation I had with somebody. I don't remember who it was. And I either said something or I didn't say something that I probably should have said. And, for days after, I kept saying to him, oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have done this. And he just said, Patricia, Patty, you probably call me Patty. You are raking yourself over the coals. Stop it. And I'm like, oh. And that was the first, you talk about awareness. That was the first awareness I had. Now, I didn't do anything with it, at 16 or 17 years old, but that's a story that I remember.
yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing that I always say, like, sometimes other people can experience type ones as being a little correcting and a little critical. But I always say, if you looked inside the mind of a one, it would break your heart because just the level of kind of self, criticism and the harsh inner critic, it's a lot. Yeah. So,
Yeah. And the thing about it is I feel like I have grown so much from that high school girl I was. But then there still lingers, right? There are still remnants of that because one of the questions I asked you around the Enneagram typing system is, well, can you change? Can your type change? Can you speak to that?
yeah, it's a great question. Your type doesn't change. And I say it's kind of like the country you were born in, like the country you were born in is the country you were born in. Your relationship to your type may change. Your behavior will change. But that habit of attention that you have at the beginning, you will always have. And people also ask, are you born your type or do you become your type? And this is a little bit of an open question in the community, but most people, including myself, think you're probably born your type. But maybe at 3 or 4 years old, there might be a crystallizing moment when you realize it. So Patricia, maybe you were the little girl who was lining the shoes up, because you're a one and you want things in order. And, at 3 or 4, you start to notice that you're doing that or whatever.
Yeah, no, I wasn't lining up my shoes.
Or maybe you were the one who was correcting the other kids, because sometimes like ones want to be the teacher, like in the teacher role. I've seen that too. But it's that, and it doesn't change, although the way you act it out will. So kind of Patricia, like you were saying, probably you probably aren't as self-critical as you were, but you still catch yourself because the pattern is still there. It's just that we've learned to work with it a little bit more. So
Yeah. Yeah. We develop and grow. And I think as you spoke about, moving abroad, and if one is moving abroad, expect to make mistakes, because that's the way to grow. Absolutely. I mean, I think that is I was on a discovery call with a woman the other day, and I thought the conversation went to, oh, I just need, help with the visa, the more of the logistic stuff. But at the end of the conversation, and it didn't dawn on me until the next morning I woke up, and sometimes I'm like, oh no, it wasn't about that. It was about this. As she'd said, oh, well, I just don't want to make any mistakes. And I thought, oh yeah, I can understand that. And you know what? It's going to happen.
I mean, it's totally going to happen. And again, that you can make the obvious mistakes, you can make the more sophisticated mistakes. Like the way I think about it is I want to make sophisticated mistakes. There's just no way not to, but hopefully don't make the rookie mistakes, right? Maybe we can avoid those ones. But it is 100% likely you will make mistakes. That's just the name of the game.
Well, but so for you, as I think about it, and as I think about how far I've come, is I'm able to laugh at myself when I make a mistake, because before, when I would make a mistake, it was painful, right? It was painful. Now, like, I recognize that I'm going to make mistakes. It's part of the growth process. If I want to improve, like learning French, right? Getting fluent in French. I wouldn't be fluent in French if I didn't make mistakes, and I still make mistakes, right? It's just going to be the way that it is. But I can laugh at myself now, and that makes it, I give myself grace, and that makes it so much more pleasant to go through life in general.
Yeah.
So for you as a fun-loving person, you don't necessarily have the same struggle with the being correct, or that I do. But does that fun-loving element help you when you do make a rookie mistake?
Yeah, I mean, I think the language example is a really good one. So I am motivated to learn Greek because I'll have more fun, but feeling humiliated and stupid is not fun, right? And anyone who learns a language, you are signing up to have moments when you feel stupid, right? Because I have sophisticated thoughts, and I'm communicating like my 7-year-old goddaughter speaks significantly better than I do, right? And so there's that. What I did is I started to just reframe the whole thing in my mind. So I would go to Greek class and I would tell myself, your goal is to flush red with embarrassment at least twice, in these 2 hours. Like,
love it.
And then when it would happen, invariably, I was like, good girl.
I love that. That is great.
And if it was a really bad night, I would give myself a reward at the end, whatever that was going to be, like a beer or something. So I did a lot of reframing, but where my block is as soon as it stops being fun, I'm inclined to hit the eject button, right? But you can't operate that way because I'll never get good at anything. So I have to kind of work with my personality around how can I stay in things even when they're unpleasant.
Well, so does that help me though? Then, since I want to be perfect, does that help me stay the course?
It probably does, because you're going to be almost more committed, right? Like you're going to say like, I'm doing this, and like, you'll just kind of plow through it, even though, like it's painful. You don't like it. You're having these, rough moments or whatever. One can kind of keep their eye on true north. Your thing is just holding yourself to such a high standard that you yourself never feel satisfied. That's the part that you would have to
that sounds about right.
And each type has their thing, right? Their thing that is helping them and holding them back. And it's kind of identifying both of those. So
yeah. So if you're interested in learning more about what Lynn does, I did put in the chat her website. So definitely check that out. Edelweiss says, so true. The puzzled look I get when I speak German. And we've got another question from Brent. for both of us. Have recent geopolitical developments made you more glad of your move, or do you feel like a little like maybe my family, etc., need me more now?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by saying, it's not that I was prescient. Like, I moved when Obama was the president and I was feeling great about things. So like that, certainly wasn't what motivated my move. I am deeply distressed by what's happening now. I think being here, I probably see it, I'll say more clearly, certainly differently, because I'm looking from the outside. I'm still completely American, but I'm not in it. So I feel very happy to be here and very concerned for lots of people who are there. Do I think that people should move because of that? I think that's a deeply personal question. Like, moving is not easy. And I think you would want to be doing it knowing your why. But I would say if you had moving on your mind, to me, this would be a really good time to start exploring that. So I would say it that way. I don't know, Patricia, what do you think?
Yeah, yes, I I don't know how many times I've told myself, oh, Patricia, I'm so glad that you listened to that intuition. It didn't make sense. There was something telling you to get to France. And now I look back and Trump was president when I moved. But I don't think that was the driving force. It nudged me. It definitely did nudge me, because for 2 years before I had it in my mind to make the move, but then I got that little nudge. And so, yes, I feel grateful that I did listen, and I am here now. Yes, I agree with you, Lynn, that it is deeply troubling, and I was heartened by the marches a couple of weekends ago. That felt really good.
Yeah.
And I think, as Lynn said, yeah, moving abroad and is really hard. So it's not a solution unless it's something that you've wanted and that your why. That because you can think it'll be easier or better, but then you'll have a different set of concerns or issues that you might not have considered, and then it just might not work out. So, all right. Are there any other questions? Because we've got a few minutes left, and I want to make sure everybody has gotten their questions answered. Lynn, what would you say has been the biggest lesson or the biggest growth, personal growth you've gained from making your move?
I think the thing that I see now upon reflection that I wasn't aware of, but now it makes so much sense, is how valuable it is to come and contribute. So I think, when I moved, it was like, I'll move and I'll be in Athens and I'll figure out how that's going to work for me. And it's kind of like focusing on like, how am I going to make this work for me? And that was totally what I was doing, because what else would I do? I happened to also come as a Kundalini yoga teacher during the financial crisis. So because I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher, I started offering Kundalini yoga classes. And because it was a financial crisis, and I very strongly feel like, Kundalini yoga is medicine, I just did it donation based. And I have a big roof deck so people would come. That really transformed my experience, because I wasn't the foreign girl. I wasn't the American. I was the yoga teacher in my community, and I was offering something. And what ended up happening is a whole community built around that. And so I made a lot of my friendships from that. And it just, a lot of things happened because of that. So I think what I have learned is the value of, not to be corny, but like figure out like what you can bring to the table and offer that to people. And I think that really is a game changer. You know, at the moment, I'm actually having these thoughts. I've been in Athens for 13 years, but I'm starting to feel pulled to the foothills of Mount Olympus. And I'm, you know, this time I'm thinking about it in a more specific way. Like when I go, how will I offer yoga? How will I do that? Because I know that that will be part of it. That will be part of how I will set up my new life. So not everyone's a yoga teacher, but everyone has something to offer. And I would say get clear about what that is and start thinking about how you can offer that in whatever community you're going to arrive in, because that might totally be a game changer for you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I feel like I have been very self-centered, not in a necessarily bad way, but about my experience here up until a couple of years ago when I'm writing this third book, and I had this aha that, you know, the question that my book seeks to answer is why did I have to move to France? Why at 51 did I turn my life upside down? Why did I follow this intuition? Why, you know, what was waiting for me there? And as I was writing the book, um, I saw a shift. Like it was all, well, maybe it was this, something that would help me, right? Maybe it was this, something that was focused about me. And there was a shift in the book where I talk about, oh, well, maybe it's about how I can help others, right? And that was a huge shift. And so as you share that, that makes me feel like, oh yeah, that is, I think, a really good point to make as you think about making a move abroad, and definitely think will help you integrate, but also, I don't know, make you feel, it makes me feel so much better, so much happier that I am contributing and helping others.
Yeah. And just to say, if you're writing books, like right away, you're helping others. I mean, to me, I consider that very much you know, benefiting other people. So I might challenge you that you've been selfish.
Well, yes, yes. Well, and when yes, yes. Well, I accept that. I accept that. So, can I've put your YouTube channel, I've put your website in the chat. Can you share just a little bit about how you help people, who you help, so that if people are interested, people who are watching live, people who are watching the replay are interested, they have a sense of, oh yeah, I need to go check out Lynn's YouTube or her website?
Well, first, what I would do is invite everybody listening to this to come to my retreat in Paros, which is a Greek island, August 30th to September 5th, where it's called a wellness retreat, and we eat super healthy food. We lay on the beach. We do yoga every day. It's a wonderful community. We talk about the Enneagram, and I always laugh because people come and they leave looking 10 years younger. So like it's amazing. But my work, you know, it's a lot of different things. It is, you know, helping people find their Enneagram type and then figuring out how to work with that. It can be how to establish a daily yoga or meditation practice, or yoga and meditation practice. And I think with the level of stress that we're starting to experience in the world, it is becoming almost non-negotiable to have some sort of a practice that grounds you and helps you lower stress. And I say you can do that in as quick as 3 minutes a day, but it has to be regular. So I help people with that. I do mastermind groups. I do corporate training. So one of my very favorite things to do is to bring the Enneagram into the business world. And for me, that's great because it kind of links my past as a finance person with my present as an Enneagram teacher. But teams can really transform when they start to understand what is happening for their coworkers. So it can be a real game changer. But yeah, those are the main ways. You can read my books. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. I encourage you to sign up for my weekly newsletter where I share videos, articles I write, any new events that are happening, and sometimes things that are happening in my life. So yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you, Lynn. And I just want to share that I am helping people make this move abroad, help them to work on their mindset, make sure that their why is defined so that it helps them to move with ease. And I do this in a couple of ways. It's the mindset stuff. If you're stuck, you've got blocks, you know, you want to do this thing, but you haven't been able to make progress, I help with one-on-one coaching. I have a group coaching and mentoring program for single women who want to make the move abroad, but not feel like they are doing it alone. And that is by invitation only. And if you're interested in that, you can apply at thecouragecatalyst.com/CEI. And if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, you can go to thecouragecatalyst.com/future expat. And then I've recently added a service to help people who are, maybe they feel like they're good with the mindset piece, but they just don't know where to start. They've done a lot of research. They've got a lot of pieces and parts they know that they need to put together, but they don't know how to structure their plan. They're not sure about the timing. When should I start this? When should I start that? I offer a service called Exit Plan Strategy sessions. And it's a 2-package session where you fill in a form, giving me all the information about your move abroad. I take that, I create a personalized project plan for you, and then we meet and we discuss it. We fill in the dates. We get you started on a couple of those initial tasks, and you do your work. We come back, we check in to see how you did. So there's a little bit of accountability, and then we finish out on the plan, adding additional dates. And then from there, you can decide where to go. You're good, you've got your plan, and you can hold yourself accountable. That's great. If maybe you struggled to make some progress and you have some blocks you didn't think you had, we could go the coaching route. So it's a really a great program to get you started and get you in action. So if you're interested in that, you can go to thecouragecatalyst.com/exit plan. All right. So I just wanted to share that with you. I want to thank everybody who joined live. And if you're joining from the future with the replay, thank you for watching. Be sure to like this video. Be sure to share it with friends so that it gets the reach it deserves. I'm trying out this new time Monday at noon Eastern, and I'm not sure if this is going to be the time that I'm going to be doing my live streams, but I'm no longer able to do them on Tuesdays. So I really appreciate you coming today. And I want to, Brent says, this has been really fun and enlightening. Thanks. Thank you, Brent. So anything else you want to share, Lynn, before we go?
No, I loved hearing about your new offering, and I can see how it brings together your background as a project manager and what you've done lately. I love seeing how everything always adds up. So amazing.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So it hit me at the end of last year that I had not been playing that up because I quit my job for a reason. And then I thought, no, a move abroad is a project, right? I need to do this. Well, in April, I went to this project management conference here in France, and one of the speakers, amazing speaker, she was talking about what is your competitive advantage. And she had been in sales for 20 years. She decided she was going to leave that, start her own business, writing music for films. And so it's just a big difference, right? And she, was telling her story, and she had there was a piano on the stage. She's telling her story. She goes and plays. I mean, it was really dynamic. Well, what she talked about was, well, what's my competitive advantage? What is going to help me make it through? And she realized that her competitive advantage was that she had been in sales. She was business to business, but still it's sales. And it was hard for her the first couple of years, but she was successful and she made her way. And again, and so she had an opportunity to talk to somebody at the Cannes Film Festival. And that, and that was because she was able to take no for an answer and go to the next person, take no for an answer. And so that just reinforced, Patricia, you have to combine the two. You've got the mindset stuff, you've got the coaching stuff, but you've also got the public stuff. It's a great combination. So.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, thank you so much, Lynn, for joining me today. Your story is inspiring, and I'm looking forward to staying connected with you.
Absolutely, likewise.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Bye.